Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics. We're very glad to jump into our post-election session, joined by the biggest newsmaker in this state, not only this state, but in Washington, Congressman Jason Smith, now in House leadership. Tell me the seat.
Scott, thank you for having us. It's been a interesting long week. When I left to Missouri Monday morning and came back last night, a lot's happened.
So give us the exact office that you've been elected to by your peers in the United States Congress.
There's one of 8 elected leadership offices in the House Republican Conference, and I was elected a conference secretary. This was not something that was on my radar. It was, in fact, before the election, I had several colleagues saying, Jason, you should think about running for leadership. And I'm like, no,
How long have you even been there? Has it been like 2 months or something? My gosh.
Just over 3 years. And I kept telling people no. And then when I finally told my colleagues that I'd say yes, it happened. And I decided Saturday morning of last week. And when I decided Saturday morning, I was on the phone nonstop calling my colleagues and asking for their support. And I got over 150 people to commit and ended up winning on Tuesday.
Tell me what this job actually does.
We meet on a weekly basis on multiple times with the entire leadership team. And that includes, of course, the Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader, the Majority Whip, and myself and the other 4 members of leadership. And we help push the policy that's going forward. And as someone who is the state co-chair of Trump from Missouri and having the Trump White House, I'm excited. This is the time that we have to lead. And, before, I was always trying to stop bad things from happening from this administration. In fact, I met with the transition team this week, and I was like, there's a lot of executive orders that I think Mr. President Trump needs to repeal very soon. And they're like, well, we'll write them down and send us a letter. And so right now I'm compiling Waters of the United States.
How many pages is that going to be?
All of these. It's going to be a lot because there's so many things that just can be reversed by executive order, but there's a lot of things that have to be done in helping grow our economy, create more jobs, increase the wages, and we can do that with substantial tax reform. I serve on the Ways and Means Committee, which is the committee that will rewrite the tax code. I'm extremely excited about that. We have to secure our borders. We have to look at the immigration issues. We have to repeal and replace Obamacare. And there's so many issues. We got a lot of work. But what I woke up on Saturday morning when I decided to run for leadership was a quote that I always heard Reagan say. He's like, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? And only 4 times that I can think of in the last 100 years have we had this opportunity to lead. And if I'm going to be in Washington, I want to be part of it. And I want to make sure people hear me and we're pushing.
So in the state, the last person from Missouri in leadership was, when he was in Congress, was Roy Blunt. Before that, it was Dick Gephardt. Now yourself, I don't think there's ever been a person from Southeast Missouri in the leadership in Congress.
We've had some great members of Congress from Southeast Missouri, but I don't know of any that were in leadership. It takes a lot of extra pressure as well and a lot of time commitment, but I want to make sure that the voices are heard in Southeast Missouri, South Central Missouri, and the closest member of leadership to even our region in the Midwest is Speaker Ryan in Wisconsin.
Wow.
And so it's time that we're represented. It's time that we have someone who understands agriculture and just understands our values. What happened on Tuesday is what I call the rural revolution. The percentages were crazy across the country. People in rural America were fed up and they want to change. And I want to make sure that at that leadership table, people hear and understand of how our way of life has been affected and how we want to change.
It was so interesting watching news. I have to admit, the German in me liked the Schadenfreude. I'd watch CNN that Wednesday after the election. You'd watch NBC, and you could tell. They knew no one that admitted to voting for Trump. They just live in a bubble that does not include the Midwest. They look down on us. Even at some of the newspapers in the state, they're better and they are more elitist. I think it's wildly exciting and important that somebody from rural Missouri is represented at that table to maybe remind some of those elites that, you have Manhattan and the Upper West Side. There's a whole big country out there.
We're not flyover country.
Yeah.
And it was interesting the day after the election watching some of those national media outlets, and they're like, we just don't know people in that area. We don't cover news in that area. And I kept saying there was an intensity out there, there was a movement out there, and pay attention. I have a colleague of mine who's on the other side of the aisle, who's a good friend, who in fact sent me a text message. He's like, the day after the election, he's like, in our area, and he represents an area up in the New England states, and he's like, it feels like our dog just got ran over. And I said, well, it feels like we're all walking on water in Missouri, and we're hopeful for what's yet to come. And so we have such a divide in this country, but we all are Americans, and we want the best.
It's a dadgummest thing to see people protesting. I wonder what President Trump has done to any of those people. I mean, I'm a capitalist. There was a socialist that got elected president twice. I didn't protest. I had to go to work the next day. It's a sad thing. I don't even know what they're protesting.
I don't either, and it's disappointing. Maybe if they all had jobs, they wouldn't have the time to do that.
Yeah, I wonder how many hours of work have been missed by the protests.
But that's what's great about our country, is that we do have the constitutional right to express ourselves.
Sure.
But I also have the right to not agree with what they're doing.
If this was going on in March and Donald Trump had done some things people disagree with, okay. But 2 months before he takes off is a little weird. Tell me the story, though. Speaking of the media, I heard a story. You were a surrogate, and there was a debate here in Missouri at WashU. A dozen folks were going to be surrogates in the spin room. After some of the events that happened beforehand, it was down to you and Senator Sessions, right?
Yeah.
Only 2 left. Tell me about that experience.
You know, that debate was on a Sunday evening at WashU. That Friday is when the historical video came out. And then you saw a lot of people pulling their endorsement of President Trump, having knee-jerk reactions. And it ended up that night, there were only 2 elected officials that still stood by and agreed to be in the surrogate room afterwards taking questions. This is myself and Senator Jeff Sessions. And I got to tell you, that was a very difficult night, taking a ton of questions.
Sure.
And being the son of a former pastor, it was not easy questions. But what I kept talking about is that we have to look at the issues, and the candidate that best supported my issues, and protecting the Supreme Court, and securing the border, and repealing and replacing Obamacare, and growing our economy and creating more jobs was Donald Trump. And I was asked some of the most difficult questions I've ever been asked by media, but I'm glad that I stood by our president, and I think he's going to do a good job.
So, last question. You're from Salem, Missouri. Every so often I'll see a paper say R. Cape Girardeau, and I'm like, no. He's from Salem, Missouri. You understand the folks that voted for Trump. Your district carried overwhelmingly in the primary, overwhelmingly in the general election. The largest win, I think, in the entire state was in SEMO. Do you believe Donald Trump, from what you've seen of the transition, is going to remember the folks that voted for him and were very, very loyal to him?
You know, I think that the people that voted for him was tired of business as usual in Washington, D.C.
Hasn't worked for him.
And it hasn't worked. It's been a tough 8 years, and they're wanting something different. And Mr. President Trump is exactly that different. And I'm excited. For the 40 months I've been there, I've been wanting some help. And these are reinforcements, and I love it. I woke up at 2 o'clock this morning because I couldn't sleep just thinking about policy, of how we can lead, because this is the time to lead. You know, you talk about a lot of the papers saying, you know, our Cape Girardeau or our Salem. My hometown of Salem, the Post-Dispatch yesterday said our St. Genevieve. I'm blessed to represent St. Genevieve.
Good
I'm
folks.
blessed to
Good wine.
represent Poplar Bluff and Cape Girardeau, but my family and my home is Salem, and it's something to have the opportunity to serve the 8th Congressional District and just be a country boy from Dent County.
The folks that they're bewildered about that voted, that's your folks. That's folks you know. You actually know these people that voted for Donald Trump. It's interesting that you can be in his ear and remind him. Let me ask you something else, though. There's a U.S. Senate seat opening up. You've had a meteoric rise. You've been there a handful of months. You're already in leadership. I know folks have had to mention it to you. They've whispered it around Missouri. Any interest in running for Senate?
My number one desire is serving the people of Southeast and South Central Missouri. And we got a lot of work to do the next 2 years. People's tired of campaigns. And I am, the biggest honor of my life has been able to represent my friends and neighbors in Southeast Missouri, and I don't see myself going anywhere else.
Who knows, next time we see you, maybe Speaker of the House.
Oh,
Interesting
boy.
time. Congressman, congratulations on all your success in Washington. We hope you'll come back here and talk about the actual policy differences you're making on This Week in Missouri Politics.
We'll do it. Thanks, Scott.
Zeke, we'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel. The vaunted Lou Hamilton will be back. But first, we'll leave you with this week's leading Missouri economic indicators.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
St. Louis is a special place. This is home.
And we're more than a community.
We're a family. We value hard work. We sacrifice.
And even in tough times, we don't run. We work together.
Except if you're Stan Kroenke, a Walmart billionaire. He took our Rams to Los Angeles.
We just didn't lose a football team. We lost good jobs.
He hurt our economy, our families. He turned his back on us, our values, our town.
And for what?
So he can make millions more?
Well, we may not have our Rams, but this football Sunday, we can all send Stan and Walmart a message.
Shop local, not Walmart.
Shop Dearborn.
Shop Schnucks.
Shop and save.
Stand up for community.
Put our family first because Kroenke may have taken our team,
But they'll never take away who we are.
At Ameren, Missouri, we're committed to providing cleaner energy
for generations to come.
Our new state-of-the-art solar energy center is a great example of that commitment. It's part of our long-range plan to deliver more than 30% of our power from cleaner resources.
Making sure your energy future is not just brighter,
but cleaner too. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. We're joined again by Senator Tom Dempsey. Welcome back, sir.
Great to be back.
Representative Tracy McCreary, friend of the show. Thanks for being on.
Of course.
We're joined again by Lou Hamilton. And Lou, I've always believed that when you become a really big deal, you get internet trolls. And that's why I think you're the king of St. Louis. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Don Gosselin, former representative, joining the show for the first time. Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics, sir.
Thank you very much. Great
I
to be
have
here.
to say, when he was talking about being in the leadership of the U.S. Congress, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he was in Jeff City serving with everybody else. You served with Jason Smith. It's a really cool thing, huh?
Absolutely. When I first arrived at the Missouri House, been 6 years ago, I remember Jason was one of the first people that I'd met, and he was in a leadership role there. And what was great is his door was open. He had a big class of freshmen coming in, yet he still kept his door open to help people out. And I think that's part of what he'll do in D.C. is be able to help new people coming in and have an open door so that everybody's opinions are heard.
And he's took off like a rocket. Let's talk about something cool, though. He told me a story about going and meeting with Donald Trump, the now President of the United States. How do you think that transition's going?
I think the transition's going fine. I think some people are being surprised by what Donald Trump is doing as far as people he's choosing to be on his staff that maybe weren't behind him during the election, but he feels they're still the best person to serve on that staff. I would like to see that continue, where he's not just picking his political insiders to help him out, but pick the people who can do the job the best.
Tom Dempsey, you've worked, and your family has worked in Republican politics a long time. Republican president, Republican Senate, Republican U.S. House, Republican governor, Republican or Missouri House, Missouri Senate, all Republicans for the first time I can ever remember.
Oh, it's was a tremendous victory on election night, and they're going to have to take those majorities, and they're going to have to do something with them. So all eyes are going to be on both the majority party at the national level and certainly here in the state of Missouri that we get some results.
Lou Hamilton, when I think of you, I think of St. Louis City. What do folks in St. Louis City think about what the congressman politely called the rural revolution? Right. I think it was probably the redneck revolution. On my part, I say it's the hillbilly revolution. What do Democrats do now?
Well, I think we just do what we've got to do in the urban areas, and that is to take care of business, and which is what we've been doing, frankly, for so many years without any help from Jefferson City or Washington, and we've had to do it and go on our own, and now we're going to have to go on our own a little harder. I hope that with the changes, like with the Governor-elect Greitens, who's a city guy, he grew up there, he will have a little bit more understanding of the unique challenges that we have in the urban areas, and maybe not be as, we've been treated, I think, kind of poorly by the legislature for the last few years. They want to take what we produce out of St. Louis and bring it up to Jefferson City, but they don't want to give back much. And I think having a perspective of, my preference, the person I voted for was Chris Koster, but Eric Greitens, it was an unusual event to have two candidates for governor, both coming from St. Louis.
Within about 5 blocks of each other, right?
As Chris Koster said, it made for some difficult moments in the produce section at Straub's when they would run into each other. But I think we might actually come out a little bit better with a Republican governor that has some roots and some understanding of the urban issues that might help translate in the legislature.
Tracy McGrew, let's talk about President Trump. What do you think so far?
Well, I've been impressed with his, like Don said, his willingness to look for the most qualified person. Sometimes we hear from constituents that they wish government was run more like a business. I think what Trump is doing right now is looking for the most qualified people, and I would like to see that trend continue.
Okay, you got to help me out with something. I always look at you as a sincere person who thinks differently than me, different life experiences, but is truly sincere. How do you explain people protesting someone before they ever take office?
Well, I think there is a disconnect. First of all, we should all be comfortable with people expressing their First Amendment rights because it's part of.
Oh, I think it's great.
Right.
But I mean, I think maybe what they're doing is reminding everybody in rural Missouri why they voted for him.
Well, that's okay. It's their right to do that. I'm not out there protesting. I have other ways that I can express my dissatisfaction. But, I think that because Secretary Clinton won the popular vote, there are some people that feel like maybe the Electoral College system is out of whack and that kind of thing. But I do think, the mistake that the protesters are making is when things resort to violence and vandalism and such, that's not cool. But they should be allowed to use their voice.
See, Senator, I don't have much of a conscience. That's why I'm always glad when Tracy comes on and can kind of explain things to me, why I should have sympathy. I just don't get it. I'm a capitalist. There was a socialist elected twice. I didn't like it, but I had to go to work the next day. I wasn't protesting.
No, I mean, we were just talking about social media prior to coming on, but it just seems more polarized than ever and more caustic in how people relate to one another. And that's unfortunate. I think you see that where, they're not living with the outcome of the election results. And that's just something that new, I believe. I think that it wasn't always that way, and I hope that it won't be that way after, this brief moment
I
of time.
got to jump in because, let's go back 8 years. And this is exactly what the Republican leadership, more than anybody else, did when Barack Obama was elected. Mitch McConnell said, Anything he brings is dead. We're against him. We don't recognize him as a legitimate.
But he was opposing to the political process. He wasn't
Yeah,
out protesting.
but there were lots and lots of non-governmental resistance to accepting Obama as the president. So that's part of the process. But I agree with Tracy and with Tom both that you respect the process. I'm not crazy excited that Trump got elected, but he got elected. And the talk about the Electoral College, guess what? It's been around for 240 years, and all depends on whose ox is being gored. We live with it. If we don't change it, we live with it. So we accept it. But none of this burning the house down.
By the way, I didn't interrupt you when you said the St. Louis didn't have any friends on the Republican side of the aisle for the last few years. You did have some.
We did, yeah. I want to apologize.
So we're going to interrupt one.
I wish we could go. I wish we could go back to the genteel Republican times of Senator Dempsey.
Me too.
Representative Golson, I thought there was something where Trump, as a person that admired Trump even when he was running, he said some things I didn't agree with. One of them was when he talked about not accepting the results of the election, too, during the campaign. I thought that wasn't his best hour.
No, and I think everyone agrees, even the people that did vote for him, that he had many moments that were not his best hour, and a lot of that was his inexperience being in front of the camera and the political eye, where every word you say is going to be questioned and looked at with a more critical nature. Heard a quote the other day, a famous quote, where I don't like that person very much, so I need to get to know them better.
Good
and
point.
I thought that's a good case here. A lot of people just don't know Donald Trump very well, and maybe if we all get to know him a little better, we'll find there's some more redeeming qualities there.
Let's talk about St. Louis. Tom Dempsey, when the last session started, you led the Senate. John Deal was the Speaker of the House. Eric Schmidt was the EcoDevo chairman. Don Gosa was the insurance chairman. Fast forward to this session. There's not as much legislative clout in St. Louis. I always thought you left the Senate as probably the most respected senator of the term limits era. Give me some of the folks that people in the St. Louis area and the business community should know that will be looking out for them in St. Louis effectively.
You've got some people who want to make a difference from Missouri, and I think do care about the St. Louis region. Certainly, Bill Eigel is someone that I don't know very well, but
it's a name I'm hearing a lot as somebody that may be a go-to guy.
After a very contentious primary, said, "Listen, I want to build bridges. I'm not holding a grudge on, you supported my opponent, so we can't have a relationship." And I think he's been very amenable to meeting. I know he met with the St. Louis Regional Chamber just a couple weeks ago, and he continues to do things that I think that are going to be good in the long term for how he's able to, one, get things accomplished in the Senate, and also to advocate for St. Louis and a region.
I'm looking at I think Bill Eigel has what the makings of a potential political star. He's really taken to the job well. I think he's extended his hand in friendship. I think I'm kind of bullish on Bill Eigel's time, but I want to ask you the transition. They're over in the Truman Building. The folks you've heard that are coming in and out of the Truman Building right now, Catherine Hanaway's leading that process. What have you thought of Governor Greitens so far?
Well, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like the panel, I think it's great that we have a governor for the first time in a long time from St. Louis. I think that's very, very helpful for this region. We are the economic engine here on this side of the state, so I think it'll be great to have him there. I think I was very impressed with Greitens when he came out and spoke out against that LGBT discrimination, that SJR 39 from last session. So I'm very excited about that we will have a governor that understands that businesses in Missouri do not want to have discrimination as part of our Constitution.
Lou Hamilton, what's one thing you think the new governor should know about St. Louis and should be looking out for and helping with?
I think he knows a lot about St. Louis already. He grew up in St. Louis County. He lives in the city. He and his wife and children live in the city. I'm cautiously optimistic. I think, like Tracy is, and want to give him the benefit of the doubt, that he behaves and comports himself in a pragmatic manner. That he understands that we shouldn't be governed by ideology. We should be governed particularly at the state level, by what it takes to get things done, to put people to work, and keep the machinery of government and commerce running in the state. And to do that, you have to have an understanding of both the city and the rural interests.
Tom Dempsey, I have to say, as somebody that was pessimistic about Governor Greitens during the campaign, the first week couldn't have been more successful. Brought in Catherine Hanaway. She knows everything about, probably the most capable person I know. I've been pretty impressed, and I think he may be in a very unique situation to set up to have one of the best first years of any governor in state history.
I think we all want to see him be successful, and as you said, he's made some good decisions at the outset. They've got a tremendous amount of work to do between now and the state of the state address, and that starts with getting good people in place, and so far he's making some pretty good decisions.
Don goes, and I heard Jay Nixon on the show last week. He was impressed. He thought he did the ground running. I think if you go to Jeff City right now and you talk to even people on the Democrat side of the administration, the existing one, they're pretty impressed by the start so far.
Yeah, I think being the outsider that he's no longer the outsider.
Sure.
A lot of people didn't know a lot about Governor-elect Greitens and what he was going to bring to the table. But I think a lot of people kept an open mind towards him as well. And I think so far what he's done is he's proven, okay, he's done well this first week. Let's give him another week. And as long as he keeps making sound, fair decisions, I believe people are going to continue to work with him and have an open mind for what he plans for the future.
Let's talk about the rest of the legislature. Tom Dibs, you saw the Republicans hold the Boone County Senate seat. You have to kind of think it's got to be an amazing thing to think back to the old days of HRCC when the Republicans were in the minority. Now they're talking about we could have 24, 25 seats in the Senate. Amazing accomplishments.
Yeah, I was somewhat surprised on election night, as I think a lot of people were. But yeah, my hat's off to the candidates who were able to go out and put a good message out, and the Senate campaign committee. Something I used to have. I used to have something to do with. They did a great job helping their candidates this cycle, and of course, the House continues to enjoy a super majority, and they HRCC and identifying candidates there that really fit the district. They continue to really, I think, outperform.
Tracy McCreary, let's talk where the Democrats go from here. You got a U.S. Senate seat to defend in 2018. The only statewide elected official left, Nicole Galloway, to defend that. I always thought that Hillary Clinton, like most folks, probably would win. The media had convinced me too. It looks like the path to the Democrats back may be President Donald Trump. There's a lot of Republican consultants that have looked very intelligent through 4 cycles of President Barack Obama. Now they have to have a President Donald Trump. Is this the opportunity to make a comeback?
I think it is an opportunity. I mean, this country was set up to have this system of checks and balances. Now the checks and balances is so out of whack that I think we're going to see a bigger than usual bounce back in 2018. So I think that bodes well for the Democrats in the midterms.
And Lou Hamilton, you come right out of the gate where Steve Stenger will be running on the ballot.
Right.
Very popular county executive. Mayor's race in St. Louis is going to be very interesting, gin up a lot of excitement. And there are some bright spots. John Rizzo, I think, will be a very effective senator coming out of Kansas City. I think Nicole Galloway is somebody people can get behind.
Yeah, I agree. I've only met her one time. She's bright. She's been going after things in her job as auditor that other people left alone, like these special tax districts and the forgotten pockets of money and government that are out there. And the Republicans ought to cheer that, actually, because she's doing something nobody else has done, is looked into those kind of things.
We won't be on next week. We'll be back to the first week of December. Something you're thankful for this year, Don Gosen?
I'm thankful for my family. Every single day of my life,
Awesome.
I'm thankful for my family.
Great. Senator Dempsey, what do you think? What do you think this year?
Well, I'm going to echo Don. I'm not thankful for his family. I'm thankful for mine, and we're going to have everybody together for Thanksgiving. And that just doesn't happen very often anymore, getting all the kids together.
I am very excited to go back and see Mama in West Butler County. I got to say I'm thankful for the chance to have this big contentious election where everybody had different sides.
I'm thankful for a record number of women elected to the U.S. Senate, and they come from both parties, and I think that really just is a great thing for women. I'm very thankful for that.
Lou Hamilton, internet trolls?
Internet trolls, I'm always happy about that. No, I'm happy, like everybody else, to have my family gathering back with kids home from college and so on for family Thanksgiving, but I'm also particularly thankful that darn election's over.
I'm thankful for Ballpark Village, too, and we're thankful for all of you from St. Louis, Jefferson City, Kansas City. Thank you for watching This Week in Missouri Politics. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you by Spire and Sterling Bank.